Welcome. Please comment where you're watching from in the world. I'll be the first to admit I'm not brave. I do columns and credits, not cliff dives. At the firm, they call me Mr. Reconciliation. I say, yes ma'am to reception, hold doors, and schedule my haircuts 2 weeks out. I live in a quiet cul-de-sac north of Atlanta where the lawns are even and the whispers are neater. My mother still says you'll find a nice girl, and I don't correct her. I practice the truth in the mirror and swallow it on the porch. Tinder felt safer than bars, safer than being seen. Swipe, match mute. The man's name was Nathan. Tech consultant, he said. His photos had that soft professional glow. A rooftop cocktail, a beltline stroll, a dog that was definitely borrowed for the day. He messaged first. Big fan of a shirt and tie, he wrote. Do you wear those to work? I laughed, typed, deleted, tried again. Every day. Freshly pressed. Show me, he said, and I sent a mirror selfie from my hallway, navy tie, white Oxford, badge clipped to my pocket. He sent back a flame emoji, a compliment, a string of playful questions that were just smart enough to feel harmless. What floor do you work on? Midtown or perimeter? Busy season still got you? I should have noticed how quickly he guessed my firm from the skyline through my office window, how he mentioned a partner's name as if he'd heard it in passing. But when you've starved yourself of being wanted, a breadcrumb looks like a feast. We set the plan. He'd come to my townhouse after 9, to keep the neighbors' Ring doorbells sleepy and the HOA group chat bored. I changed shirts twice. I told myself this was fine. People do this all the time, even here, even me. I turned on my own Ring camera, because that's what you do when you're prudent and alone and scared. He arrived in a slate gray sedan that could belong to anyone. In my doorway he smelled like cedar and mint. He had that loose-limbed confidence of people who never worry about being believed. You look even better in person, he said, voice syrup smooth. I do declare, you're dangerous in that tie. The drawl was a joke, and I laughed like it was nothing. We poured small drinks we barely touched, and talked about nothing with the urgency of people avoiding something. His phone stayed face down on the counter, mine buzzed face down on the couch. When he kissed me, it felt like coming up for air. I stopped thinking about the camera, the cul-de-sac, the neat noses in the blinds. After, there was that quiet. He padded to the bathroom, drank from the tap, came back buttoning his cuffs. I reached up to kiss him goodnight. 500, he said, like a waiter reciting the specials. I thought I'd misheard. What? 5, he repeated. Cash is fine. He didn't blink. Or we can do this the louder way. I laughed, because that's what my body does when it panics. He didn't. He lifted his phone. The screen showed a draft email with my firm's HR address. The subject line said, inappropriate conduct. The body contained the hallway selfie in my tie and badge, my LinkedIn headshot at the bottom, neatly clipped from my public profile. Don't, I said. It came out small. You sent me workplace photos, he said, reasonable as a teacher. You invited me to your home. I'm nervous about my safety, remember? I asked questions because other guys have hurt me. You were being careful too. He smiled. And I was recording. He swiped to a clip, us at my doorway, my hands on his shoulders, the murmured, come in. Ring camera footage. My footage. He'd screen recorded the live view from the app, somehow connected to it while we were on the couch. Maybe when I'd left to grab ice, maybe earlier, maybe from the moment he matched me and figured out my email from my initials. He scrolled again. There was the HOA Facebook page, chirpy comments about the 4th of July parade. He'd circled my name in a screenshot. You'll really throw a nice block party, he said. The numbers in my head lined up like soldiers. 500, 2 ATMs, daily withdrawal limits, the cost of quiet. He stepped closer, voice barely above a whisper. Or I can go say hi to your neighbor with the flag on his mailbox, he said. I'll ask if he knows the nice accountant across the street. I'll show him your video. Maybe I drop a link in the HOA chat. Maybe I forward HR this. Concerns about harassment. You wouldn't believe the compliance budgets at consulting firms, baby. They read everything. I felt my face loosen into something that wasn't a face. The room narrowed to his hand, and my wallet on the coffee table. I told him I didn't keep cash. He patted my chest, light, intimate. Then let's ride, he said. I'll even say please. We made a car-shaped silence together. The cul-de-sac was ink and sprinklers, cicadas sawing through the dark. The bank's vestibule was bright as an operating room. I punched my pin with fingers that weren't mine. 400. Then the next bank, the one behind the Publix, where the air smelled like wet cardboard and citrus cleaner. 100 more. He hummed something tuneless. My phone buzzed. Mom, sleep tight, sweetheart. My hands shook so hard the bills rattled. Back at the house, he looked at the ring like a mirror, checked his hair, turned to me with the same calm smile he'd used when he kissed me. Thank you for a good night, he said like he meant it. Truly, I do appreciate a gentleman. When the door clicked, I locked both deadbolts and watched the blue LED on the camera stare back at me. I sat on the kitchen floor and listened to the house breathe. The neighbor's porch lights made squares on my blinds. I pictured the HOA thread rewriting me in real time, the words inappropriate, disappointed, we have children. I pictured HR's tone, measured, grave, and helpful to the company first. The next morning, the cul-de-sac was normal. Dogs peed, sprinklers spun, and the woman with the visor waved the way people wave when they've already decided something about you. At the office, the partner didn't look up when I passed. I counted the seconds of every glance and called it math. That night, I watched the ring clip again, my face a stranger's. I saved it, then deleted it, then saved it to an external drive like evidence of a crime I wasn't brave enough to report. I changed my route to work. I practiced my no ma'am, haven't seen him, in case a neighbor asked about a car they didn't recognize on their night vision stills. I drafted a resignation letter titled Opportunity, as if moving zip codes could outrun shame. In the mirror, I tried the truth again and failed it again. If you're reading this for a moral, I only have plain ones. Don't send work photos. Don't let anyone turn your politeness into leverage. Tell someone where you're going, even if that someone is a piece of paper under a lamp. Love doesn't ask for your badge ID. I do declare is not a red flag. It's the laugh you give while ignoring one. $500 is nothing. $500 is everything. I paid to keep the world small, my porch, my cul-de-sac, my job. But the world had already grown teeth. The ring glowed blue. Somewhere, in someone else's cul-de-sac, the same car idled, the same soft knock on a tidy door. And a different man, trying to be a gentleman, opened it. Summer of 2019, Austin was an oven on broil, and I was doing my usual routine, pretending I wasn't lonely by swiping on Grindr between emails. That's when his profile popped up, Nico, 22, cheekbones you could ski down, and a bio that just said, mate why Negronis? I sent a dumb line in worse Spanish than I remembered from high school. He replied with a voice note. The accent, Buenos Aires turned into velvet, had me grinning at my screen like a fool. We agreed on cocktails at a spot off Rainy, the kind of place where everything comes in a coupe and the ice is artisanal. He arrived late, of course. Beautiful people run on an internal time zone. He slid into the booth like a movie star doing a cameo, white tee, gold chain, the casual drape of someone who doesn't worry about bills. He smelled like bergamot and something sharper, something I couldn't name. He was brittle and bright at the same time. Passionate. He talked with his hands and his eyebrows, getting heated about politics, about immigration, about how Americans put ice in red wine, for God's sake. Half the time I disagreed with him. All the time I wanted him to keep talking. When the bill came, he snatched it like a magician stealing a coin, flashing a black card that made our server stand up straighter. I told myself not to be impressed. I failed. First red flag rolled in wearing a beard and a too tight polo. A big guy drifted to our table and leaned down to murmur in Nico's ear. Nico waved him off with an annoyed flick. I assumed it was someone trying to buy him a drink. It felt flattering, like dating a celebrity. The guy lingered long enough for me to realize it wasn't that. There was a familiarity to the way they didn't look at each other. You know him? I asked when he finally left. No, Nico said too quickly, and changed the subject to my worst date story. I gave him one where I came off dignified. He laughed and touched my wrist. The room went soft around the edges. 2 mezcal Negronis later, the big guy returned. He didn't ask this time. He just stood there, a wall with a pulse. Nico's jaw flexed, his smile froze and cracked. He excused himself to the bathroom, and they went together. I scrolled. I told myself I wasn't bothered. When Nico came back, he was jittery, affectionate in a way that felt like distraction. We left sooner than felt natural. Outside, the air hit me like a sauna door. He hugged me longer than a first date hug, whispered, "I'll text," then slipped away into the night. At the curb, I noticed his wallet on the table inside. I grabbed it, jogged after him, called his name. The big guy hit me before my brain finished the warning. Not a punch, more of a tackle that reprogrammed my balance. I stumbled, arms windmilling, hands up like I'd done something. His breath was hot and furious. Spanish, fast and not meant for me. I babbled, He left his wallet. Wallet! He stared, then yanked it from my hand, gave me a final shove that said don't. Nico didn't turn around. They vanished into a black SUV that had been idling all along. I walked home with my heart in my throat and a story I couldn't shape into anything. The next morning, I laughed it off to my roommate. Wild date, right? She was a true crime ghoul and immediately asked for his last name. I didn't have it. She said, give me an hour. It took her 20 minutes. Look, she said, spinning her laptop. News articles from Argentina, translations mangled but legible. A man in his 40s, shot under unclear circumstances in Rio Negro province. Not cartel exactly, but this wasn't a soccer dad either. Phrases like narcotrafico and lavado de dinero. A son matching Nico's age and face in a photograph, eyes I recognized even in grayscale. Rumors of money gone missing. Family disappearing right after the funeral. We both stared at the screen until the room felt tilted. The timeline made my skin crawl. The accidental shooting story. The sudden wealth. The big man who kept whispering. Not a stranger, a bodyguard. I texted Nico. Green bubble. Undeliverable. I called. The number you have dialed has been disconnected. The message was so cheerful I wanted to smash my phone. I tried not to think like a movie. Tried not to imagine the SUV boxed in by others, the spray of glass, the sound a person makes when they learn there's no more running. I tried not to imagine being in that booth when whoever was hunting found him. Tried not to picture an obituary that included some line about an unidentified male companion. Days later, a local blog ran a half-baked post about mysterious foreigners blowing money on West 6th, about a late-night scuffle outside a bar no one wanted to name. A friend of a friend DM'd me. You okay? Thought I saw you. I told him he was mistaken. I started crossing the street when a black SUV idled at a light. I stopped sitting with my back to the door. What sticks with me is the moment the big guy tackled me. Not the hit, but the choice. He could have let me reach Nico. He didn't. He cut the line between us with his hands and eyes and weight, and I saw in that instant that I wasn't a person to them, just a loose thread in a plan. If I'd pulled, maybe the whole thing would have unraveled, and maybe it would have snapped around my throat first. I still think about the way Nico's accent softened when he asked for another round. The way he looked at the door every time it opened. There was a life running parallel to mine at that table, a river with teeth that I stepped into for 2 hours without understanding it had a current. When I pass that bar now, I don't look in. The coupe glasses are still stacked, the ice still beautifully square. I imagine a different version of the night. No big guy, no SUV, just a kiss and a second date and a joke about putting ice in red wine. But that's not the one I got. I got the version where romance was the decoy, and I was almost a headline. And somehow, that's the luckiest story I can tell. I was 19 and soft around the edges with the kind of optimism that makes you easy to trick. My Grindr profile was a selfie taken in the bathroom at my parents' house. Fluorescent light, towel rack, acne doing its best to heal. He messaged me first. You're cute, the screen said, and then, I'm 26. Dental student. You like pizza? The photo attached was a gym-lit jawline, faded ball cap, smile like a toothpaste ad. I showed my friend and she said, finally a normal one. We picked a place 2 towns over. I told myself that was safer, as if predators observe municipal borders. When I pulled into the lot, the summer heat was trapped under the parking lot lamps. A man stepped out from behind a truck and waved at me with the easy confidence of someone who has waved at 1,000 boys. He was not 26. He was closer to 50, thick through the middle and sweating into a faded Braves cap. His t-shirt strained at the seams. He had a voice like gravel and the kind of smile that doesn't touch the eyes. Hey champ, he said, and before I could answer, I'm starving. In the booth he talked a lot and none of it was nice. He didn't ask about me beyond the stats, age, weight, where I lived. He said the word boy too often. He said he needed it 3 times a day, like a doctor reciting a dosage. He said he was a dental student when I asked what he did, and then he winked. Hands-on learner. I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. The pizza tasted like cardboard and panic. I tried to be charming. I tried to be agreeable. I tried not to make a scene, because at 19, not making a scene felt like survival. When I suggested we call it, he brightened. I'll walk you to your car, he said, like a gentleman in a movie. We were parked far apart. Hop in mine, he said, jangling keys. I'll drive you over. It felt rude to refuse. Rude is what you call fear, when you've been taught politeness is safer than no. I slid into the passenger seat and clicked the belt, and the moment I did, the air changed. He locked the doors. It made a sound like a mouth closing. The car smelled like mint and something industrial. He turned on the dome light. The light made everything a different kind of ugly. He reached to the back seat and brought forward a little plastic case, the kind you'd take to a picnic. He flipped it open and the gleam hit me. Picks, mirrors, a scaler, a pair of latex gloves tucked under an elastic band. He put on a headlamp. The sound of the elastic snapping against his wrist was louder than it should have been. "Let me see," he said, soft coaxing. "Open up for me." "I'm good," I said, trying to laugh like this was a joke we were both in on. "I brush." He cocked his head like a dog listening to something 2 rooms away. "We'll just take a look," he said. "You can tell a lot about a person from their teeth." He put on the gloves. The powdery latex smell made the mint smell worse. He took out the mirror and the hook and tapped them together in a rhythm my heart immediately tried to match. "Say ah," he said, and when I didn't, he said my name like he'd known it forever. It's hard to describe the way panic gets small and bright inside your body. I felt it as a knot just below my throat. I tried to unbuckle. His hand rested, not hard but absolutely, on my forearm. "Buddy," he said, tone suddenly scolding. "Don't be difficult. I'm trying to help you." Help. That word. I opened my mouth the way a person opens a door because someone polite knocks. The cold mirror touched my lip. The hook slid along my gum like a thought I didn't want. "Aha," he murmured, pleased. "Crowding. We can fix that. You know how confidence starts in the smile. Girls love a good smile." "I'm not." I started and stopped. He leaned closer. The headlamp haloed my face on the inside of the windshield. My breath fogged and unfogged, my own ghost pausing and returning. He watched me the way people watch small animals. "You have no idea how many guys I've helped," he said, and his voice had gone distant, like he was quoting a story only he could hear. "Some of them didn't even know what they needed until I showed them." His thumb pressed my jaw open a little wider. The pick scraped, a squeak I felt in my bones. I made a small sound I hated for its smallness. "Sure," he said, and that was the moment I understood the shape of the night. It shrank around that sound like a drawstring bag. "I dropped my phone," I said, pointing to the floorboard by my feet. "1 second. He made a face like a dentist being patient. "Make it quick," he said, and the words were the exact words from 1,000 exams, and yet not that at all. I ducked. I curled my shoulders and pretended to fumble. The space under the glove compartment smelled like old coffee. The latch on my seatbelt was a red rectangle. I hit it with the heel of my hand. The click was tiny and holy. I popped the door, and the car's chime went berserk. He grabbed for me and got a fistful of shirt. Cotton tore like paper. I slithered sideways and hit the asphalt half on my knees, half on my face. "Hey," he yelled, the word cracking into 2 pieces. "Get back in the car." I ran. I didn't look noble. I looked like a person falling forward faster than they could recover. The 7-Eleven sign buzzed like a stadium. I crashed through its doors into air that smelled like fryer oil and lottery ink. The cashier looked up, frowned, then squared his shoulders the way people do when they decide, in a small way, to be brave. He said, "You okay?" And I said, "Yeah," which was a lie, and then louder, "Yes," which was another. I watched through the glass as the car idled. He sat there, the headlamp still on, making a white circle on his forehead like a cartoon idea. He killed the dome light. The circle vanished. He drove away slowly, like he was obeying the law. I blocked his number. I deleted the app. I scrubbed my mouth until my gums bled, and the mint taste won. In the mirror I saw a boy who had mistaken being polite for being safe, and I wanted to shake him. Instead, I told him what I wish someone had told me. When your body says no, don't translate it into maybe. When a man brings a toolkit to a date, that's not a profession, it's a plan. For weeks afterward, I flinched when anyone said open wide. I learned the names of the tools he touched me with, so I could take them apart in my head, reduce them to syllables and steel. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't lied about the phone, if I'd swallowed one more shoe, if the hook had gone from tooth to throat, if the mirror had been there to admire his work. I don't wonder long. I do not go out of my way to be rude anymore. I go out of my way to be alive. I turned 18 and mistook secrecy for adulthood. Oscar messaged me the week after my birthday. Older, sure, but his profile was clean and careful in a way that made me feel chosen. No bathroom mirror selfies, no shirtless pictures. Just a sunlit photo of him on a hiking trail, a quiet smile, a dog I never saw again. He wrote in full sentences. He asked about my favorite music, and then actually listened when I answered. When he offered to pick me up, I said yes like I was stepping across a stream. One foot, then the other, pretending I wasn't already wet. We agreed he wouldn't pull up in front of my parents' house. I told them I was at Todd's, which was a lie and also the plan. Todd would cover for me if they called. I waited a block over in the soft orange of the street lamp, listening to sprinklers spit and stop. The van rolled up like it had always belonged to the night, dented blue, humming low, windows clean but not too clean. Oscar leaned across to open the passenger door. His smile was gentle, almost shy. "Hop in," he said. "We'll get some air." The inside smelled like laundry detergent and pine, the kind of scent you buy when you're trying to seem harmless. He had a blanket folded in the back, a cooler, a speaker. "I know a nice spot," he said, and I nodded, because what else do you do when a nice spot is offered like a gift? We drove with the windows down. The radio played something slow. He asked about my graduation and college plans, and I gave him answers that made me sound braver than I felt. He didn't touch me, not even a brush of knuckles over gear shift. When he laughed, it was soft and surprised, like we were both relieved to find the other real. The road narrowed to 2 lanes, then one with a gravel shoulder. Trees gathered and thickened on either side. He turned onto a dirt track I never knew existed. "Almost there," he said, and I said, "Okay," because I had trained my voice to sound fine even when it wasn't. The clearing felt staged by someone with a good eye. A level patch beneath high branches, moonlight lifted through leaves. A breeze that smelled like water even though I couldn't hear any. He cut the engine, and the silence arrived like someone closing a heavy door. Cricket started up as if on cue. We sat on the blanket. He poured soda from the cooler into paper cups, offered me one with an old-fashioned politeness that melted me a little. We talked about bands, about the worst teachers we'd had, about dumb childhood injuries. He touched my hair like he was testing the softness of a sweater. When he finally kissed me, he did it carefully. My heart knocked politely, like a neighbor at a door. I thought, maybe secrecy can be sweet. Later, he said, "Scoot," and I did, and he reached behind me into the shadows of the van and brought out a belt. It was brown leather, plain, with a square buckle. In another life, it held up someone's pants. In this one, it was an answer to a question I hadn't thought to ask. "Wait," I said, light and laughing, a boy playing at being a man. "It's okay," he said, voice low, like we were in a library shared only by us. "Trust me." He looped the belt around the back of my neck, laid it there like a necklace to be admired. My skin prickled. The buckle kissed my collarbone. He tugged, just enough to make my breath a thought instead of a reflex. "You belong to me now," he whispered, and the words did something to the air. I reached up to lift it away, playing at protest, thinking we were still in a scene where I had a say. He tightened it with a flick learned from somewhere, from someone. The world got smaller and brighter. A sound left my throat that I didn't recognize. He smiled, not cruel, just pleased. "Shoo," he said, like he was soothing a skittish animal. I tried to speak and got a squeak that wasn't language. I tapped his wrist. He tightened again, not much, just enough to make my body panic. My feet fidgeted uselessly on the blanket. Somewhere far away, the cricket song turned into static. "Breathe," he said, and I tried, and my body did, but on his schedule. The belt wasn't around my neck anymore. It was around the part of my life that believed in exit signs. He leaned in, eyes calm, voice patient. He looked like a man giving directions. "Let go," he murmured. "Let me handle it." In the space between pulses, I had the most boring thought. My parents don't know where I am. My mother would call Todd's house. Todd would say I wasn't there yet. They'd both wait, being polite. The sun would rise on this clearing and find a blanket, a cooler, a belt. It would find me if it bothered to look. I tapped again, harder. I pushed at his chest, not to hurt, just to ask. He frowned, tiny, like I had interrupted a song. For a second, he softened the belt. Air returned in a way that felt like cheating. I took it as a gift and tried to say no. It came out as a wet vowel. His smile went off like a light. "Don't ruin it," he said, and the softness in his voice folded into something flat. "You wanted this." I hadn't, not this way. I had wanted to be wanted, which is a different animal entirely. The belt reminded me that animals get leashes. Shame warmed me from the inside out. It made a case for compliance. It said, "Be good and you'll get to go home." I don't know how long it lasted, measured in inches and pulse beats. Long enough for my hands to stop feeling like mine. Long enough for my head to fill with the geometry of the buckle. long enough to learn the shape of a wordless prayer. He loosened it all at once, like a magician releasing a knot. Air returned as a flood and a sin. I coughed an apology I didn't know. He rubbed my back with the same hand that had held the belt. "See," he said, as if he'd proven a theorem. "We're fine." He kissed my forehead. He put the belt away with domestic neatness. He started the van and hummed along to a song I didn't hear. He drove me back the way we came, past trees that stood like witnesses who refused to testify. When we reached the street lamp where I'd stood earlier, he pulled to the curb. "You're special," he said, like a teacher sending a kid home with a gold star. "Text me." I got out and shut the door gently, because I am someone who has been trained to be gentle. He drove off. I watched his taillights until they slipped around the corner and became someone else's problem. Inside my room, my phone lit up with a text from my mother. "Home?" I typed yes, which was true in only the most geographical sense. I sat on my bed with the lights off and practiced breathing without permission. Then I did the thing that felt like blasphemy and salvation. I told the truth. I told Todd. I told my sister. Eventually I told my parents. Their faces changed into all the things I'd been afraid of seeing. Fear, confusion, the ache of realizing their son had a life they didn't know. Then those faces changed again, into something that looked like resolve. Here is what I learned. Secrecy is a weapon that will always be turned against you first. The belt was not the only thing that tightened that night. The lie did too. If you are young, and you think privacy is the same as safety, tell someone anyway. Write it down. Drop a pin. Send a screenshot. Love should not require a map of unmarked roads. I don't know where Oscar learned to make a leash feel like a lesson. I only know I will not learn it from him again. I met him in the early days of my app optimism, when a blank profile felt like mystery instead of a missing person report. He told me he was retired and comfortable, which I read as wealthy. I was squinting at my future through a keyhole, and money always looks like light from that angle. It poured the night he picked me up. New York rain that makes the city smell like electricity and hot coins. I'd told him I had allergies and terrible eyesight, that I couldn't handle smoky, dim rooms. "Of course," he said. "There's a bright, healthy spot I know. You'll love it." When I got in the car, he wore khakis and a flannel shirt like he'd dressed for a Home Depot run. I'd put on a jacket that made me stand up straighter. I told myself to relax. People dress how they're comfortable. Not everything means something. We drove past the salad place he'd promised and pulled into the kind of hotel brasserie where the lights were carved into shadows and the air tasted like cigarettes that never learned the ban. He found a corner table as if he'd reserved it since birth. My eyes watered. I blinked hard and said nothing, because that's what you do when you're trying to be easy. He kept his head on a swivel the entire time, scanning the room the way a deer drinks at a river. "I prefer privacy," he said, and then, after the waiter poured water, he told me he used to be a Methodist minister. Retired now, independently comfortable. He smiled a thin, apologetic smile I recognized from men who split themselves into two lives and never got the seams right. He didn't ask me much. When he did, he waved away my answers with little snorts, like I'd missed the point of my own life. He got loud about people catfishing, about deception, about standards. "People should look like their pictures," he said, hard enough that a couple at the next table glanced over. I agreed in the small, social way you agree with a stranger, but it didn't matter. He wasn't seeking conversation, he was building a case. When I asked if I looked like my picture, he said, "Sure," dismissively, like even that had disappointed him. The waiter returned, a young man with nervous hands. My date looked at his name tag and said it out loud the way some people test the fit of a word in their mouth. There was a pause, and then he made a joke about the waiter's name sounding ethnic. He laughed at his own punchline. The joke had a shape and a history, and I wanted to peel my skin off to get away from it. I changed the subject to work. He said he'd been married once, 2 kids, a phase. He rolled the word phase around like a marble. He asked what I did. I told him, graphic design, some jewelry on the side for extra money. He smiled for the first time, and it went all the way to his eyes. "Jewelry," he said, and then made a pun that turned the word into something cruel about a people who've been turned into jokes more times than I can count. It was crude and old and heavy. My mouth worked before my fear could stop it. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. He blinked. "You're not," he began, and I cut him off. "What if I am?" It felt brave in my head and foolish out loud. Something in his face rearranged. The apology left. The minister stayed. The room tilted from dim to dangerous. We ate around the violence of the conversation, both of us pretending food could make this normal. He paid in cash and hustled me through the rain to the car like we were avoiding paparazzi we'd invented. The gospel station murmured low on his radio, a solo voice stretched tight over an organ. He gripped the wheel at 10 and 2 as if he'd been taught once and never questioned it again. He asked if I wanted to see him again. I said yes because I was in his car and the rain made everything feel like we were underwater. He smiled in a small, satisfied way that made my stomach curdle. "Good," he said. "You're not like that other boy. Desperate. He'd do anything." He said the word boy like a threat. My building wasn't far, but it felt a burrow away. The air in the car thickened, hot with words he kept chewing and swallowing. I watched his jaw work. I watched his knuckles go pale. I watched the cross on the rearview mirror swing with each pothole, tapping the glass like a metronome counting down to something. He started again, slow and careful like a reading. "I gave my life to God," he said, "and this, a gesture that managed to include the car, me, the rain, New York itself, this is what I get." It was like sitting beside a pilot arguing with a ghost. I found myself doing that negotiation people do with strangers' anger. Be small, be agreeable, be forgettable. He took a corner too fast. The tires skated and caught, the cross kissed the mirror, the hymn swelled, and then cut to static. My building's block appeared like a stage set. I pointed. "Here," I said, trying to make my voice friendly. He slowed and then didn't stop. "Change your mind?" he asked, almost playful. I felt the word no form in my throat, and then choose a different route. "I have an early meeting," I said, which was cowardice pretending to be logistics. He braked hard enough to earn a horn from behind, leaned across me, and popped the door. The dome light flared and showed me a face washed clean of charm. "Get out of my car," he said. I did. The rain took me back. I closed the door, and he was already gone, taillights a wound sliding down the avenue. I stood there and laughed once, because sometimes your body has to release something, and it picks the wrong thing. Then I climbed the stairs and locked my door and sat on the floor like a person who had been reissued a life and wasn't sure it still fit. After that night, I learned to trust the first flinch. I learned that a cross on a mirror doesn't mean mercy. I learned that a hymn can hum under a threat. I still meet people from apps, but I meet them where the light is bad for secrets. I write down the plate numbers I don't want to have to remember. When someone insists on privacy too soon, I remember the way he scanned the room and the way the city felt like a witness who'd look away. I have a scar no one can see. It tightens when someone says, "Bless your heart," with their teeth together. If there's a moral, it's small. The internet is a house with a million doors, not all of them open to the room they promise. Okay, so I moved to Lisbon, right? Total fresh start. New city, new degree, basically a whole new me. I was gonna be brave, you know? Like the version of myself I only ever managed to be online, but for real this time. Found this tiny studio near ISCT, balcony barely big enough for a yoga mat, but the view? Unreal. Terracotta roofs glowing like they'd just come out of a giant oven at sunset. Stunning. My Portuguese was, well, let's just say I sounded like a very careful tourist. And because loneliness hits different when you're in a new country, speaking a language you barely grasp, I downloaded Grindr. Because let's face it, loneliness speaks every language fluently. That's where he came in. First message. Blank profile pic, naturally. Name was probably fake, but it had this weird, understated charm. Joe_ish. His opener was so simple, it almost felt innocent. "You're cute." Then the kicker. "Seen you around campus." And just like that, something shifted. The words landed light, but they stuck like burrs on a wool sweater. My profile pic, yeah, it had a blurred cafe background, but you'd have to know the place to recognize it. And he did. "That cappuccino looks like Cafe X." My gut did this weird little lurch. I should have felt flattered, right? But instead, everything tilted. It wasn't a good tilt. He kept asking questions, normal stuff on the surface, but with this weird, almost physical undertone. What I studied, which floor my building was on, which tram I liked best. Basic info, but the way he asked, it felt like he was peeling back layers. I kept my answers soft, friendly, deliberately unhelpful. Like trying to pet a stray cat and keeping your hand flat so it can't bite. Then he sent a photo. From somewhere above street level. A slice of sidewalk, the bright green awning of my bakery, and the unmistakable corner of my building, jutting into the frame like a shoulder. "Walked by," he wrote. "Didn't see you today." My blood ran cold. I tried to reason with myself. Lisbon's a city, neighborhoods overlap, maybe he lives near me. Maybe he works near me. I told myself a lot of things that were definitely not "this is bad." But the logical part of my brain was already screaming. The late-night message arrived like a punch to the gut. "You look cute today. Black hoodie." My breath hitched. I walked to the mirror, stared at my reflection. Yep, black hoodie. The one I'd worn all day. And I hadn't seen anyone I knew. Not a soul I recognized. My heart started doing this frantic drum solo against my ribs. Then another message. A picture. Pigeons clustered on the square outside ISCT, just like always. But beyond them, if you zoomed in just a little, there it was. The exact bench where I'd eaten a pastel de nata that afternoon. He added a winking emoji. A winking emoji. Like we were in some rom-com, not a slow-burn horror movie that hadn't decided its genre yet. That emoji felt like a violation. It was playful, but it was menacing. It said, "I saw you. I know where you are. I'm watching." I tried to set boundaries. Gentle ones, because I was still trying to convince myself I was overreacting. "Busy this week," I typed, my thumbs clumsy. "Lots of reading." I hoped he'd get the hint. He didn't. He texted anyway. Breathless hearts. Sudden, possessive lines that made my skin crawl. "I keep thinking about you." Asterisk, no you don't. "You keep thinking about what you can do to me." Asterisk, wish I could watch you study. Asterisk, oh God, no. "No you don't." Asterisk, you should let me come up, just to talk. Asterisk, just to talk. "Yeah, right. Just to talk." Asterisk. That was it. My finger hovered, then slammed down on the block button. Done. Finished. The next day, he made another account. "That was rude," the new profile said. No photo, same cadence, same unsettling vibe. "I'm nice. I don't deserve to be ignored." My stomach dropped. I blocked that one too, my hands shaking. Then came the third. This one started with a compliment, sweet and disarming, but within 3 messages it slid into cold, hard anger. The switch itself became the message. He could be whatever I needed him to be, until he didn't need to pretend anymore. He could be charming, or he could be pissed off. He was a chameleon, and I was the fly. My studio, the one with the glowing terracotta view, started to feel like a glass bowl. Exposed. I didn't stand on the balcony anymore. Not even for a second. I kept my curtains half drawn all the time, which made the room feel like an apology. Like I was apologizing for existing, for being seen. My phone, which used to be my lifeline, became this terrifying weather system I couldn't control. Every buzz was a thunderclap. Every bubble of typing was a flash of lightning in the corner of my vision. I'd turn notifications off, desperate for silence, then turn them back on again because not knowing, not being able to anticipate the next strike, felt even worse. The anxiety was a living thing inside me, a constant hum. I tried ignoring him again. He didn't care. "I saw you near ISCT," he wrote. "Is that your building?" And then he named it. Correctly. Something cold, like a ribbon of ice, unspooled down my back. I typed and erased, my mind racing, panicking. What do you even say to that? How do you respond to someone who's clearly watching your every move? Finally a lie, clumsy and desperate, but it felt like a life raft. "My boyfriend is visiting from the UK this week. We'll be around together." It wasn't clever. It wasn't even particularly believable, honestly. But I hoped the idea of a witness, of someone else being there, would outweigh whatever twisted thrill he was getting. I hoped it would be enough to make him back off. He didn't reply that night. Or the next. The silence was almost worse than the messages. It was a vacuum, waiting to be filled. The night after that, I saw a figure on the opposite corner, looking up at my building. Just standing there looking. Then he walked on. Maybe it was him. Maybe it was just a man checking his map. My heart didn't care about maybe. My heart was screaming. A week passed. A whole week. The accounts went quiet. My shoulders, which I hadn't realized were practically up around my ears, dropped an inch. I stood on the balcony for 3 minutes, just 3, and pretended the breeze was mine again, not some invisible observer's. But when my phone buzzed, even now my pulse still spikes. The body is a slow learner, man. It remembers fear more faithfully than facts. It remembers the cold dread, the constant surveillance. Sometimes, I just sit and think about how ordinary his words were at first. "You're cute. Seen you around campus." How much horror can tuck itself inside something so seemingly innocuous? That's the real mindfuck. I still use the app, yeah, but I move differently in it now. Like crossing a street where the walk signal is broken, and you have to check every single direction a dozen times. I blur my background religiously. I never, ever share my floor. And I save screenshots and send locations to friends like I'm sprinkling breadcrumbs behind me, hoping someone will find me if I disappear. Lisbon is still beautiful. It really is. But that beauty looks different now. It's just different when you know someone can watch it all through you. I tell it fast because that's how it happened. Quick, quiet, no soundtrack. London, 2017. Me and Sarah met through a friend of a friend situation that felt like a soft intro, but was really a swipe in disguise. She had that ultra-curated vibe, private Instagram with 200 followers and a highlight reel that looked like a lifestyle brand. She'd done Raya for networking, Tinder for banter, real life for the clothes. I'm not judging, I'm just clocking the pattern now. At first, it was heat. Everything in fours, 4 nights a week, for inside jokes, for stickers on her laptop covering a logo. Then the weather changed. Passion curdled into petty. Who picked the wrong tube line? Who put the spoon in the sink the loud way? Who said, "You always too much"? Those aren't fights, those are tests. I failed on purpose. We did the adult thing. A clean break at a cafe with 2 bright lights, split the stuff, unfollowed without blocking. She slid my spare key across the table, bit lip, chin up, like we were in a tidy British play where everyone bows at the end. I took the key back and felt the tiniest drag in my gut. That feeling you get when a lift door closes, and you know you forgot something. I told myself I was being dramatic. Deadass? I didn't want to be a paranoid ex-boyfriend guy. Months. I slept, worked, dated boringly, learned how to cook 1 decent curry, rearranged books, let dust decide where it wanted to live. Then a July night, I go to bed wine soft, and wake up like a puppet tugged by the gut. Dark room, the kind of dark that feels thick. I'm on my side and the mattress dips behind me, like a cat jumping up. I don't own a cat. Don't, I say, turning over fast enough to pull something in my neck. She's there. Sarah. Silhouette, then face. No scream, no drama. Just, "I'm sorry." A whisper that lands like a pin in velvet. She stands, smooth muscle memory of my floor plan, and walks out. I hear the soft click of my front door pulled shut like someone doing me a favor. You want to know what fear is? It's the half second after the door clicks when you realize the only way in, at that hour, is a key. I didn't chase her. You're thinking you would, you wouldn't. You'll freeze because your brain's gotta inventorize. Keys, windows, knives, phone, lungs. I sat up, heart doing push-ups, and turned on the bedside lamp. The room looked the same except it didn't. The book I'd left face down was closed like someone was tidying. The glass on my dresser had a ring I didn't make. In the bathroom, the hand towel was damp, hung in her fussy way with the tag hidden. Back then, I had a regular lock, not a smart one, and I thought I was being old-school sensible. Next day I upgraded. New cylinder, new keys, extra spare locked with the super. I killed every remember this Wi-Fi entry on my router. She'd said it once, which means her phone had the handshake. I cycled passwords. I turned off login autofill and facial recognition for banking. Paranoid ex-boyfriend guy, welcome. Coat's over there, sit down. I told my mate's girlfriend to pass Sarah a message. Do not come back, ever. If you need something, ask through a third party. That's generous, I know, I'm from Queens. We say you good, even when we're not. Weeks later, it started feeling like a story I'd exaggerated in my own head, until you clocked the breadcrumbs. A wineglass in the drying rack when I'd been on beer. A paperback moved half an inch toward the edge. The smell of her shampoo in the hallway was the one that bent me. You don't smell memory, you smell molecules. One Tuesday, I found my door on the chain, even though I never use the chain when I leave. That's when my brain rotated the picture. She's not visiting. She's practicing. Night theater with no audience. No texts, no DMs, no miss you. Access without conversation. It's cleaner, and it's worse. I installed a smart lock for the audit trail. That's supposed to fix your head. Timestamps, names, the little log that says door closed, door opened. One night around 2, I got a buzz on my phone. Door jam alert. I checked the feed. Nothing. No entry. Just the lock thinking too hard. The next morning, nestled in my notifications, a different buzz. New login from an unknown device. Not the lock. My cloud. I went cold in the fingertips. Deadass? Not dramatic. Facts. I looped in the super and the neighborhood Bobby. Police officer, but London puts suits on words. I asked how you report a trespasser who's neat. They told me to keep documenting. I started printing. Screenshots are nice. Paper makes a sound. That sound is Judge, here you go. You want the app angle? Our era does digital break-ins prettier than physical. A remembered Wi-Fi lets a phone sit on your network unseen. Shared smart lock access can be cloned if you're not careful. AirTags chirp, but some chirp late. After the cloud login, I turned on hardware keys for my accounts. I factory reset the lock hard. I talked to my building like a person. Hey, if you see her, text me. The super shrugged, said, say less. Queen's in his bones too. Then I got the photos. They weren't in my messages because she's not stupid. They were in my recently deleted because she's not perfect. 4 shots. My face asleep. Close. You could count pores. The 5th was smeared by a finger as she pulled back. That's when the fear inverted. Violence wasn't required, power was. She wanted me to wake up and not know why I couldn't breathe right. I did the thing you should do, and the thing you don't wanna. I told people. Pride is dumb. Yo, I need a couch, I texted. I slept in Shoreditch 2 nights, came back with 2 friends midday, and installed a proper camera. We made tea like we were contractors. I moved my bed. I bought a door wedge for inside, which feels like a joke until it doesn't. When I left London for the States, I gave my forwarding address to exactly 2 humans. I landed in New York and realized the cadence in my head had always been this city anyway. I told it like this: breakups should be silent. This was midnight theater without tickets. Don't romanticize it. Don't, maybe she misses me it. That's how you end up explaining your own murder to yourself. OD creepy? Nah, just creepy enough. I wasn't planning to go out that night. It was a Tuesday, wet and mean, the kind of rain London does like a grudge. But my flat felt small and my head felt loud, so I let a mate drag me to a crowded bar off Old Street where the music was too cool to sing along to. I told myself I'd have 1 pint, watch other people be brave, and go home. He found me by the fruit machine. Not on an app, not with a tap to connect, just there. Blonde, tall, a little bland in the way actors are bland before makeup. A smile like he knew you already. You look bored, he said, and it sounded like a rescue. Guilty, I said, because I'm the kind of person who makes things easier. I'm Steven, he said. His voice was soft enough you had to lean in. He asked about my accent, guessed the borough wrong, laughed at his own mistake like it was charming. He bought the next round before I could argue, something clear in a short glass for him, a lager for me. I don't do beer, he said, shuddering theatrically. Too many carbs. I'm in training. He didn't say what for. He didn't flirt so much as curate me. I was clever, apparently. I had good hands. I was the kind of person who didn't know how lovely he was. He kept placing me in flattering light. I saw my reflection in his opinion and liked it. It was like being photographed by someone who wanted me to believe I was worth the film. When he touched my elbow to steer me away from a crowd surge, his palm was cold. Let's sit, he said, and somehow a table appeared in a 2-full bar. He set my pint down, then slipped off to the loo. I watched the condensation slide down the glass and told myself not to be suspicious for the sake of it. People leave drinks all the time. People come back. People are fine. He did come back, with a napkin and a story about the DJ being his mate's cousin. He asked about me, real questions, not just the data points, and every time I said something honest, he filed it away with a pleased hum. I took a long pull on my pint. It tasted wrong. Not bad, exactly. Just off. Like a sweetness where none should be, a flatness that didn't belong to beer. New keg, I said to no one, to the room, to my own creeping brain. Steven tilted his head. Everything all right? He asked, and I heard the words behind the words. Are we still moving in my direction? I forced a smile and put the glass down. I'm good, I said, and my tongue felt like it was wearing a coat. The room didn't tilt, exactly, it softened. Edges went polite. Sounds got upholstered. Steven leaned in, and his pupils looked too wide for the light. My place is just near, he said, almost apologetic. Don't want the night to die in here. Some nights, that line is an invitation. That night, it was a shape with teeth. I glanced at my phone and saw the battery at 3%. My friend had left hours earlier with a new mistake. I thumbed a message I didn't send. If I share my location, don't ask questions. Just watch. The bar felt suddenly like a stage set, extras, props, lighting. Steven's hand appeared near my glass, casual, like it was just resting. Be right back, I said, standing too quickly. The floor bounced. He touched my shoulder to steady me, and his fingers stayed a fraction too long. Lou, I added as if I had to ask permission. In the mirror, I looked like a softened version of myself. I splashed water, pressed cold into my wrists, and breathed until I could hear the bass through the drywall. I tried to name the feeling so I could act on it. Fear? Maybe. But fear, for me, always arrives with manners. It asks if now is a good time. I decided it was. I stepped back into the hallway instead of the bar and found the staff door. A bouncer the size of a wardrobe stood sentry, bored but watchful. "You all right, mate?" he asked, not because I looked it. "No," I said, and it shocked us both. "I think someone's messed with my drink." He blinked once, then twice, then moved without any more questions. Another bouncer slid into place by the table I'd left. Stephen looked up, smooth as mercury. He smiled at me across the room, a tiny private thing. The second bouncer picked up my pint, sniffed it, shrugged like you can't smell a decision, and carried it away. "Sir," the first bouncer said to Stephen, calm as weather. "Need to have a word." Stephen's smile never faltered, but something behind it blinked awake. He shrugged, stood, put his hands in the air in a pantomime of cooperation. "Of course," he said. "Just a misunderstanding." When his eyes swung to me, they were blank as a shutter. I felt very small and very seen. They walked him toward the back. He didn't look back. I expected my legs to fold, but they carried me to the bar where a woman with a sleeve of roses was waiting with a glass of water. "Happens more than it should," she said, not unkindly. "You did right." "What did I do?" I asked, and she smiled like a teacher. "You listen to the bit of you that isn't polite." The police came and took statements. They were brisk, tired, skeptical in the way institutions get when you say the quiet part out loud. I signed my name on a form I didn't read, and watched the door the way people watch the sea for a promised ship. He didn't come back. I walked home in the rain because the night bus was a long wait, and I needed the air to bully me awake. In my flat, I locked the door and then locked it again. I poured my pints twin down the sink and watched it swirl like a choice I could dispose of. Weeks later, a friend sent me a link with a headline that put my stomach on a floor 2 floors down. "Man charged in deaths of young men in East London." The photo was him, and not him. Courtroom lighting, a jaw set to neutral, a face you'd forget if it wasn't attached to a story you wouldn't. There were details I won't repeat, and names we should. There was a word for what I almost was, not victim, not survivor, something between, like a shadow that didn't quite land. I replay the night sometimes, looking for the moments that saved me, a taste that didn't belong, a phone battery that threatened to die, a bouncer who believed me without needing a thesis. Mostly, I remember the way he made me feel seen, and how dangerous that can be when you've been waiting a long time to be looked at kindly. If you want a lesson, it's small and stubborn. The voice in your gut is not rude. It's the oldest part of you trying to keep the rest alive. Listen before the edges go polite. We were at Pyregees Plus, steam fogging the front window, Steelers highlights looping on the TV with the sound off. My buddy says, "You want to hear something that'll make yins lock your garage tonight," which is the kind of opener you ignore or you lean into. I leaned. "It's not here," he says. "Australia. But a story like this don't need a passport." He tells it Pittsburgh style, flat, steady, like the incline ride up Mount Washington, an academic couple in the Adelaide Hills. She's a professor with the cool glasses. He's a plumber who took the school-run shift. 2 kids, a neat little place with gum trees, and a garage big enough for hobbies. Marriage goes sideways in June. Happens. He moves out in August, keeps it decent, trades Saturdays, tries to be a grown-up about it. She says it's over, then a few weeks later, a new guy's toothbrush appears by the sink. "Okay, sure, rebound," I say. "Not exactly," my buddy says, dunking a potato pierogi. "This one's a charmer with capital C, military dropout with a story for everything." She meets him through work, then later there's messages, a job at her media side hustle, and before you can red up the pantry, the man's in the house playing stepdad. I don't love the math. You move your new guy in while your divorce papers are still wet. You're drawing triangles you can't erase. Add custody. Add money. Add pride. You're making geometry, I say. He nods. Geometry gets sharp, he says. So, a Sunday drop-off. Dad brings the kids home on time, booster seats, half-eaten snacks, little sneakers thumping the hall. He walks the bags inside, hugs are done, and he says he'll take a look at the gun safe in the garage because the new guy asked to see a hunting rifle. Send a pic to a mate, man stuff. Doors open, fluorescent hum. The new guy follows. The garage has that smell every garage everywhere has: cardboard, oil, old summer. And also this other smell, the metallic one your body recognizes before your brain wants to. My buddy taps the table. This is where every little choice they made got loud at once. Depending on who tells it, the shot came first or the hatchet. The new guy says the plumber shot him. He grabbed the nearest thing and defended himself. The plumber says he was blindsided with a hatchet from behind, swung because he thought he was dying. Either way, neighbors hear banging. Kids are inside the house and thank God don't see. When the sirens leave, both men are alive, barely. One is a mess in the middle, the other will never walk again. The garage floor keeps its secrets because concrete is like that. Yins hear that banging last night, the neighbor asks later, like we all do, a little late and a little guilty. Here's where it pivots from tragedy into something colder. The paperwork starts coughing up receipts. Texts where new guy asks to see the rifle. Bank alerts that joint money moved to a private account. An insurance application appears with a timestamp that sits you down. There's also a woman who shows up later at the rehab center at dawn, stands over the paralyzed man's bed a while, and slips away when nurses approach. Someone the professor met off a dating app months earlier, who might have thought she was doing a favor to love. Cops have to pull on 30 different threads at once. The professor buys tickets. She flees, kids in tow, to a tiny country in the Pacific because the ocean is big and people think distance erases math. It's a mess, my buddy says, hands up. And I ain't saying who's guilty of what. Courts are for that. I'm saying the pattern looks like a storm radar before you notice you left your windows open. He dumps pepper on his Husky like a man salting a driveway and keeps going. The plumber, who had been a house dad, is now a body in a chair. The new guy who loved the mirror says he's a victim. The professor with the syllabus voice says she is too. Lawyers line up with timetables. Screenshots get blown up on projectors. A ballistics expert carts in math you don't want anywhere near your family. Nobody comes out of a thing like that with their old life intact. Yins feel the chill because you've got a garage too, and a lockbox code sitting right there on the pegboard where it's convenient. What's the app part? I ask. I already know. I want to hear it said. The app part is the vouching, he says. We got apps that turn strangers into boyfriends and coworkers into alibis. You meet a friend of a photo, and the algorithm says, looks good to me, 5 stars. Meanwhile, the receipts show up in knots. You can be nebby after a disaster. You could be organized before. He points with his fork like a coach. If you're splitting, change the locks even if yins think it's too early. If there's a safe, rotate the combo. If the new guy wants to borrow your gun for a pick, that's a no because this ain't a catalog. If money lives in a joint account, move with permission, in daylight on paper. If you're meeting folks from apps, keep them out of the house where the kids sleep until the dust settles. If someone starts recruiting third parties through vague posts, I wish he'd disappear. Stop treating that as poetry. He pulls his phone and shows me a notes app checklist titled After, and I laugh because it's bleak and perfect. After, don't wait till after. Screenshots of texts, export, email to yourself. Bank alerts turned on. Custody calendar saved as PDF. Lockbox codes changed, written in one place, not shared as LOL text. Garage motion sensor working, test it monthly. Neighbors' numbers. Super's number. Photos of damage if anything happens, next to a ruler for scale. A simple sentence for the police that doesn't feel like a soap opera. We are separating. I'm concerned about access to the house. Sunlight ruins creepy, he says, shrugging. Subpoenas love a timeline. We sat there for a minute, the TV showing a slow-motion catch, Heinz bottle on the table backlit like church glass. I thought about garages, how they're supposed to be the least dramatic room of a house, all utility and cobwebs, and that one bag of rock salt you never finish. I pictured a motion light popping on and catching 2 silhouettes in freeze frame, the old life and the new one, both trying to win the space where the lab coats call evidence and the kids call it dad's tools. You tell this to scare me? I ask. Nah, he says. To tune you. He means what we mean here. Don't live scared, live ready. Keep receipts. Don't ignore patterns because someone pronounces scone right. Yins can be kind with your words and mean with your boundaries at the same time. I texted my sister on the drive home. Change your door code. She wrote, LOY. I wrote, because you can. Then I pulled into my own garage and watched the light come on slow. I stood in the square of it and listened, just the tick of a cooling engine, the world small and normal. I snapped a photo of my lockbox and put the date in my calendar to change it. I checked the motion sensor, which blinked like a sleepy eye. The story wasn't ours, but it could have been. When I moved back to Vegas from Austin, my phone felt heavier. Maybe it was the desert static, maybe it was the strip buzzing like a hive under my window, or maybe it was 26 months of not so much as holding a guy's hand while I taught set design and graded till dawn. My friend Renee slid a drink across the table at the Peppermill and said, "Download Tinder, babe. It's not church, it's a door." I made a profile. Hated my pictures. Picked the least worst ones. Me with a power drill, me covered in gaffer tape goo, me in a hoodie that made me look 12. I'm 4'11" with a baby face. I've been getting ma'am at work and sweetie, everywhere else for a decade. That's Vegas for you. The same mouth can tip you and insult you in one breath. Enter Mark. Nerd hot. Thoughtful captions. A couple of museum selfies, a library shelf, a cat with a bow tie that seemed too on the nose and therefore real. His prompts were dry and clever. He made a joke about the Bellagio fountains weeping in iambic pentameter, and I rolled my eyes and laughed anyway. We matched. He typed in full sentences. He asked about my work without making it sound like he wanted to borrow it. We met for coffee at Vesta, and then for bow at late-night spots where the cooks know you if you live here. Mark was slow to touch, which I liked. Las Vegas runs on grabby hands. Slowness felt like oxygen. We kissed maybe 5-6 times, soft and tidy. Then a month in, he asked me, blushing, stammering, if I'd be his girlfriend. It was sweet. I said yes. The strip outside my window throbbed like a body, but inside it was quiet. We did movie nights. We did crossword guilt. He didn't push. I didn't either. 2 shy breaks, 1 car. Here's something I learned later. The door can be painted pretty and still open onto a drop. When I finally brought it up, gently, with all my therapist voice softeners, I said, "I like you. I want to be close. What works for you?" He paused. He swallowed. He tried again. He looked at my face like it was a code he couldn't crack. "Be honest," I said. "You're safe." He wasn't safe, and neither was I, because he said, "Could you, dress young? Like a little girl?" The air in my chest did the elevator drop thing. I heard the ice machine in the hallway of my building like it was inside the room. I am small. I look young on bad days, and on good days I look younger. I watched the request bloom in the space between us, and realized it had always been there like invisible ink. I didn't scream. I didn't educate. I stood up and said, "I'm going to go." He backpedaled immediately. I didn't mean like not literally little, I mean like a vibe, knee socks. And I kept moving toward the door because my body has been in this town long enough to know a slot machine when it hears one. The lever was down. The reels were spinning. The house always wins. In the hallway, I texted Renee, "Call me now." She rang, and I answered like we'd been in the middle of a conversation for hours. "Okay, I'm on my way," I said out loud, so he could hear it if he'd followed. He hadn't. I rode the elevator down with my heart banging, and stepped into the neon night that has saved me more than once. When I got home, I did the procedural. This is the part nobody tells you because it isn't cinematic. I took screenshots, his Tinder prompts bragging about good girls and old soul in a young world, the way his age range slid too low on his settings in a photo he'd sent with a "LO look at this bug," the DMs that preceded the ask. "Pigtails would be cute. Do you have knee socks?" "Don't be lame." I blocked him. I reported the profile. I added community notes in my group chat. "Don't match with Mark Book's cat." I changed my ad ID settings because the internet is a sieve. I didn't want to see costume ads baiting my nerves. "You want the seed tells?" They were there, and I ignored them because he fed me oxygen first. The photo crops with mystery elbows tucked out, like he'd learned to erase other people, but keep their grammar. The sober November caption, and the December bar pic. The prompt about preferring innocence over experience. I let that one slide because we make jokes about Holden Caulfield in theater, and I am tired. A week later, the ad algorithm tried to drag me back. My Instagram served me a carousel of adult-sized sailor dresses and schoolgirl uniforms, captions chirping cute. I turned my phone over and stared at the ceiling until the air came back. The strip outside fizzed. I put on every light in the apartment and did dishes I didn't have. Mark called once from a number I didn't know. I ignored it. He texted from a different one. "Sorry I made it weird. You're perfect." I wrote back so there would be a record. "Do not contact me again." Block. Report. Screenshot. Paper folder on my kitchen counter. Mark, tabs labeled with dates. I told 3 people, including a bouncer I've known since my first showroom gig. If he comes through my door, I'm walking you back to your car, he said. Industry armor, union crew who clock exits, security who don't ask questions, friends who say text when home. And you do. You want the search history? I didn't go looking, it came to me. We'd been watching something on my TV weeks earlier and paused, and my screen, Black Mirror, caught the reflection of his open laptop. Amazon tab with costume links. An incognito window with terms I will not type. Incognito was never invented to keep you private from yourself. I wish I could say I forgot him after that night. Vegas doesn't let you forget, it just turns up the lights. Each time a headline about exploitation broke across my feed, his face ferried itself into the moment and sat there. I hoped he found a therapist with a spine. I hoped a cop never had to be the spine instead. There's a way people tell stories here that gets the rhythm right. Present tense, short sentences like a dealer slapping cards. Here's mine, with the chips where you can see them. If you're small or look young, assume someone will try to weaponize that. It's not your fault. It's not a compliment. It's a risk. On apps, read the jokes like contracts. Good girls, innocence, youthful vibe. These aren't fonts, they're flags. Make the goodbye procedural. Block. Report. Screenshot. Leave notes in your communities. Don't be nice about your safety. Nice is for brunch. Build industry armor. Friends with radios, bouncers who watch the lot, co-workers who will walk you to your car at 3 a.m. It isn't drama, it's design. Expect the algorithm to echo the worst thing you heard. Shut it down, reset ad IDs, mute, filter. You deserve quiet. People ask why I didn't stay to debate him. I work in sets. I know false walls. Sometimes the paint is perfect and the seams are still there. Sometimes the door is a drop. My job is to know which is which. Vegas blares on whether you make good choices or not. I make mine. I scrubbed his name from my phone like dried glue, one notification at a time. I kept the folder. I kept my lights. I kept my voice steady. Never again, Vegas. And I mean it. Brickell looks like money got horny and grew glass towers. I matched him on Bumble at golden hour, the skyline bronzed like a gym selfie. VP Private Wealth, the badge bragged. Boat pics for days, Scarab, SeaDeck, 6 packs like they came with the vessel. His prompts did Miami karaoke, family first, work hard, playa harder, Dale. I should have swiped left on the 3rd boat, but my thumb likes trouble and my week had been long. He booked a rooftop in Brickell City Center and did everything right. You look incredible, not creepy. Hand at the small of my back, not lower. He smelled like ocean and fig cologne. I smelled like SPF and stubbornness. We sat under string lights, and Miami pretended to be Paris for a minute. NSFW? It was the heat under the table when his knee touched mine. The conversation had rhythm. We were both dancing around wanting to kiss already. He ordered tequila, good stuff that burned like a story you shouldn't tell. He filmed the skyline for reels, angled his jaw like he'd practiced, and did a toast take 2 because the first angle wasn't giving. I laughed because I'm nice. He laughed because he's brand management. After party? He said, mouth close enough that the word after sounded like an invite and a dare. Private doc, friends, nothing crazy. He said friends plural like a life jacket. Miami is full of plurals that turn out to be singular men and locked doors. We kissed in the elevator, heat up against mirrored walls, his hand on my hip, my fingers and hair stupid soft for a banker. It was the kind of make-out that makes you consider bad decisions and then set a timer on them. The elevator opened and he steered, that firm Miami nudge that thinks your body is a jet ski. The private doc was off a side corridor, past a door with a keypad smudged with suntan oil. He knocked a code like he'd done it 100 times, slid us in, and the air changed, salt, engine money. 3 guys glanced up from a cooler, 2 girls in cutoffs and wet hair scrolled bored. He switched languages mid-sentence, Spanish that went fast and flat, not for me. Lego, he texted in a group chat, thumbs quick. The door thudded closed. He rolled a cooler in front of it like it was nothing. My stomach did that half somersault it does when turbulence hits, and the flight attendant keeps pouring coffee like God isn't involved. "To do bien?" he asked me in that friendly not friendly voice. "Dale, mommy, relax. You're safe." Men love saying safe like they're the app. I smiled, Spanglish back because I am from places where 2 tongues share one mouth. "Tranquilo," I said. "Me arreglo las pestanas and we go." I pointed toward the bathroom, and then toward the sea like I was choosing cardigan colors. He nodded, pulled out his phone again, filmed me pretending not to notice. Content is the only altar here, women are the votives. Inside the little service alcove, the bathroom door was for show. The real door was a gray panel with a tiny lock and a sign that said authorized personnel only in English and Spanish, but never in fear. I pulled a credit card I don't love from my purse, Miami girl rule number 3. One burner for oops, and popped the latch like a bored angel. Service panel swung. A flight of metal stairs winked hello. I took one breath, the kind that fills your back first, checked my shoes, block heels, sensible for sin, and ghosted. The metal stairs sang as I bolted, a little clink symphony. On the landing, a security camera blinked. I looked straight into it and smiled so someone would have a face to go with the report. Down 2 more flights, the emergency exit spat me into a corridor that smelled like bleach and secrets. Then the lobby, a blast of AC and safety glass. "To do bien, miss?" the guard asked, clocking the adrenaline like a cologne I hadn't paid for. "Not with him," I said, nodding toward the dock corridor. He blocked the door. She exhaled like yep. "He's on a list," she said, voice low. "Boat party shakedowns. We've been trying. You okay?" "I'm hungry," I said, because sometimes you need to say a simple human sentence to convince your bones you still belong to you. "Then let's get you food," she said, like a mom and a bouncer at once. I loved her. Miami women are bilingual in rescue. Outside, Brickell pulsed. I slipped into a crowd of people taking photos of their own reflections, which is also safety. My phone buzzed like a hive. Texts stacked up. "LOL, where you go? You're dramatic." Video of my shoulder in the elevator with the caption baddie. "Come back, I'll show you the yacht." I blocked him where it counts and where it doesn't. On the Uber ride to Mary's for a late pastelito, the NSFW ache of the elevator kiss tried to make a case for going back. My thighs remembered his hand. My brain remembered the cooler against the door. Brakes over horsepower, always. Okay, so Corktown, right? It's got this smell. Not just one, but a whole vibe. Old brick baked in the sun, exhaust fumes that somehow carry a memory, then BAM. Hops from a brewery slicing through it all. It's a whole sensory overload, and honestly, I kinda dig it. Anyway, I matched with this guy on Tinder. It was a Thursday. I was killing time outside Slows, flipping between looking at ribs on the menu and swiping through red flags on my phone. His bio said car guy, which fine, whatever. But then I looked at his hands in the photos, immaculate nails, buffed like a freshly waxed hood. And the tools in the background, too new, too perfectly arranged. Like props for a photo shoot, not actual grease monkey gear. My spidey sense was already tingling, but hey, it's Tinder, what's the worst that can happen, right? Spoiler, a lot. He messaged me, and it was pure salesman energy. Fast, shiny, a little too much push. "I'm bringing a 70 Charger shell back from the dead," he wrote, capital letters and exclamation points practically vibrating off the screen. "You like rides?" I shot back, "Only rides that stop. Because come on, a little sass is good for the soul." He sent a laughing emoji, the kind that feels less like genuine amusement and more like a practiced response. Then, "Come see the shop. It's right by Roosevelt Park. We're doing big things." We. As in him and the ghosts, I figured. Or maybe just him and his ego. So why did I go? A few reasons. Sometimes I'm just reckless, That itch you get when Detroit whispers. Go see for yourself. And yeah, okay, there was something about his mouth in that one photo where he wasn't smirking. It was looser, softer, like he could be human if he stopped performing for a second. We agreed to meet outside this brick building, boarded up windows, the whole 9 yards, and a single door painted that specific, deep black you only get from auto paint. Not matte, not glossy, just auto. He rolled up in a thrifted jacket that tried way too hard to look cool, and smelled faintly of cedar chips. When he hugged me, a surprisingly firm, almost proprietary squeeze, I felt a small, recorder-shaped rectangle in his pocket. My brain went, podcast nerd. My gut went, this is going to be stupid. I let it pass. Because, again, sometimes I'm just stupid. Inside, the place was a trip. Half plant, half movie set. Corrugated sunlight streamed in, thick with dust motes dancing like confetti that had forgotten how to land. A generator idled in the corner, coughing sporadically, like an old man trying to clear his throat before launching into a long, rambling story. And there it was, a Charger shell, primer gray, sitting on stands, wounds everywhere, its headlight eyes empty. The tools were stacked just so, gleaming, no grime, wrenches singing in perfect size order. Everything felt staged. He walked me through it all, saying, "We like he'd bought the pronoun at wholesale. We're gonna drop a crate engine in her. We're building out a podcast studio over there. We do collabs with some brands." He rattled it off like a script. "We who?" I finally cut in, because the we was getting under my skin. He just grinned, that salesman grin again. Community. I don't love answers that want applause, especially when they're so vague they're practically see-through. My internal eye roll was legendary. I'll be honest though, he was hot. In that specific Detroit, trying to be better than the ruins kind of way. A tattoo peeking from a rolled-up sleeve, forearm veins doing the absolute most. He poured me a whiskey from a bottle with dust so thick you could draw a heart in it. We stood thigh to thigh at a workbench, the rain outside starting to chatter against the windows, a quiet conversation to our buzzing silence. His fingers skimmed my wrist, just a feather-light touch, but enough. The heat rose, quick and sudden, like a hood hit by the summer sun. I let my mouth get busy with his for a minute, then two. NSFW, right? It means the ache, the press, the breath that goes greedy because your body just forgets the PowerPoint presentation your brain was giving about red flags. He kissed with a strange control, a little cruel, then pulled back, tisking at me like easy there. And that's when I felt the brakes in my ribs set, hard. The spell broke. The stupid started to recede. "Show me the charger," I said, stepping away, reeling the heat back into my chest where I could keep it contained. He brightened instantly, always chasing center stage. He slid into the driver's seat of the hollow car, miming a key turn. The generator coughed, a timely accompaniment. Then he tapped a button on a Bluetooth speaker, like a magician revealing a dove. The room filled with laughter. But not his. Not mine. Women, plural, layering, echoing, cackles, delicate giggles, a breathy high one that could probably get you out of a speeding ticket if you were that girl. He revved nothing, but the shell of the car seemed to shudder from the sheer force of the sound. He looked straight at me, a challenge in his eyes, while the room laughed around us. My shoulders prickled. And then, somewhere in the cacophony, a familiar note snagged me. My own voice earlier, that little bark I make when I'm trying not to snort. Looping. "What is that?" I asked, my smile pinned on like a name tag at a job fair, feeling brittle. He was so proud, though. "My girls," he said like it was cute, like they were pets. Vibe check. Energy. I collect good laughs. Motivates me when I'm wrenching. "You record people?" I kept my pitch flat, trying to keep my voice from trembling. "Moments," he corrected, as if that's a different noun, as if that makes it okay. "You sounded so happy when you came in." He tapped the speaker again, and my own looped laughter got louder, stitched in like a squeal on a track, a ghost in the machine. The generator hacked twice, a guttural sound. Somewhere in the back of the plant, a door clanged metal on metal, a sound that means lock, a sound that means you should be the kind of woman who runs toward crowds, not away from them. I put my fingers on the charger's roof. Cool metal. The shell swallowed my reflection whole. "I should go," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline starting to pump. "I got a thing." He slid out of the seat, slow, deliberate. "You just got here." "Jeet yet?" I said, flipping the dialect card we keep in this city, the one that's half joke, half code, but also a lifeline. "I'm starving. Let's get Connie's." He grinned, and for a second, the boy in him remembered Grease and neon. "Lafayette," he said, a test. "American." I lied, because people show you themselves when you disagree about trivial sacred things. And I needed to know. He turned to grab his jacket, and I watched every hinge and latch within eyeshot. The main door had a fat padlock looped open, the shackle hanging like both a threat and a promise. The side door had a slide bolt, half shot. He must have thought the generator roar, and the laughter track made him loud enough to be God. Men get noisy when they think you're effectively trapped. And I was about to find out just how noisy. Capitol Hill has a way of making you feel curated, even when you're just wet. Neon bleeding onto puddles, zines stacked crooked at the bookstore, the smell of espresso and rain jacket nylon in every lobby. I met him on Hinge, moss green eyes like a wet fern, curls that clearly lost arguments with the humidity, prompts that read like a boy who'd underlined Mary Oliver and actually meant it. "Pour over or die," his voice note said, smiling. "Also, I make tiny poetry zines. Don't clown me." I didn't. I liked that he said zines and not chapbooks. Less performative, more ink under fingernails. His photos were Seattle earnest. Bike leaning against a maple, a cat named Segfault asleep on a keyboard, a snapshot of Elliott Bay Book Company with a caption about getting lost in stacks. We matched. He asked for my GitHub handle in the first 5 turns, so I can star your genius. Added a winky face I decided to forgive. The first night, we met at Ghost Note, and he did the ritual. Rinsed the filter, wet the bloom, waited for that cinnamon foam rise. His hands shook just enough to make me feel like maybe I did it. The heat between us felt like a dimmer switch turned fast, then steady. I let him walk me up Pike like we were in a movie. He said say less, in a tone that made me want to say more. I kissed him under a cornice, rain ticking against the awning, his mouth soft and eager. My body did the math and showed its work. Come over? He asked on date 3, the programmer's cadence smoothing the invitation, so it sounded like a compile flag, optional encouraged. I said yes with my lips already a little swollen from the stairwell make-out we'd pretended to be embarrassed about. His place smelled like ozone and old coffee, ionizer hum, roaster ghosts. The windows had latches reversed, the kind you flip from the outside on garden apartments. Noted. He pulled a Chemex from a drying rack like a magician. I'll make decaf, we'll be feral, he murmured, and my laugh came out lower than usual because my skin had already made decisions. The NSFW part wasn't fireworks, it was the ache between the polite parts. Shirts peeled off, damp from rain and want. He kissed with a patience that felt like cruelty, in the best way, mouth to neck to collarbone, hands mapping me like a new city. I let him, because sometimes you get to be a map. He asked before he put hands where hands need to be asked about. I said yes and meant it, and for a heartbeat the whole world was wool socks and good teeth, and the way the city hums when you're high on each other. We didn't sprint. We smoldered. We got almost naked and stayed there, like more would be too obvious. I liked the charge of almost. After, he draped a blanket around my shoulders like an apology to the draft. Segfault leapt up and took ownership of the crease where my thigh met the couch. We talked commits and bad poetry, and then he did a thing that made something cold move behind my ribs. You want to hop on my Wi-Fi? He asked, all breezy. Router password's dumb long. Want to just put it in for you? Before I could answer, the phrase had changed shape. Actually, what's your home network? I'll help you get your channel off the neighbors. Capitol Hill is noisy. I smiled with my teeth. I'm good. The dimmer inside me turned one notch down. He nudged again. You should let me look at your laptop. Battery health is trash on these models, and I didn't like that a tech tip had hands. I put my computer deeper into my tote. He noticed, the way coders notice patterns, and then he switched lanes with a joke. I'm beta testing your boundaries, he said deadpan. QA says they're robust. I laughed because the line was good, and because I wanted to click the little red X in the corner of the topic. The rainstorm took the power out like a stagehand tugging a cord. His studio went dark, the city outside did its glittery thing. Ha, he said, come too quick to be real. He lit a camping lantern, of course he had one, and the light went creamy and haunted. Had a break-in in this building once, he said, conversational, pushing a dresser a few inches toward the door with his thigh. Not me downstairs, but like people are bold. The dresser against the door should have felt protective. It didn't. The window latches reversed. The router question. The lantern light making our bodies look sepia. What happened? I asked, voice deliberately disinterested, like this was a story about someone else's weather. Oh, it's wild, he said. You want to hear it on the bed? He meant come lay down. I did, because I wanted to control the distance, not because I wanted the story. He lay beside me and started talking. A stranger coming in, a scream, cops, a saved cat, all delivered with that same calm too quick. I listened, one ear to his narrative, one ear to the apartment. That's when I heard it, a buzz. Not my phone. From the desk. Then again, faint, manic cricket. He kept talking, and I sat up, padded over, opened a drawer labeled, of course, test devices. Inside, 3 older phones, a nest of cables, a portable battery. All 3 lock screens lit up with notifications from dating apps. Hinge, Tinder, Field, different avatars, different names. The most recent buzz was a message preview with my opener from 2 weeks ago. Not a screenshot. The app. Logged in. He saw me seeing. He made the mistake men make when they think they can merge lanes back into charm. Oh, he said, casual. I keep burners to test my onboarding flows. I volunteer feedback. I'm part of a private beta. I closed the drawer. I smiled with the wrong part of my face. Cute, I said. You got umbrellas? Closet, he said, bright as the lantern. You going somewhere? Basement. I grinned. Laundry. The towels are damp from me ruining them. He laughed, that post make out soft. You're feral, he said, indulgent, like he'd taught me the trick. I went to the closet, grabbed 2 umbrellas, slid on my boots. He was mid-sentence about the break-in again when I blew out the candle, slid the dresser back with a hip, and opened the door. The hallway smelled like wet carpet and somebody else's enchiladas. I didn't run. I also didn't look back. The rain said go. Pike said go. The city said girl go. My phone lit up in my pocket as I hit the street. 3 texts from him, ? LOL you good? Then hey don't be weird. I blocked the number by muscle memory. By the time I turned onto Broadway, my block list was a tidy commit. Done. Ship it solo. Clean. Bywater will romance you if you let it. Shotgun doubles with chipped paint in Mardi Gras colors. Banana trees leaning into the sidewalk. A brass line practicing somewhere you can't see. I moved in July, the heat like a wet hand on the back of my neck, and told myself I'd date slow. Then Bumble served me a sax player. Call me Jules, he wrote. You from here, Cher? He had the right soft R in Cher, not the tourist one. Photos were handsome but not try-hard. Second line parade, a battered Selmer case, red beans in a Dutch oven, him in a Saint's tea holding a gray cat with one ear. Prompts were sweet. My nana taught me to cook. I'll make you a playlist for your bike rides. We matched. The app bloomed confetti like it was blessing us. First date, he cooked the beans at his friend's place in the Marigny. My kitchen's a mess from rehearsal, he said, laughed gravelly. The house was perfect shabby, porch swing, string lights, a plastic baby from a king cake stuck in a potted fern. He said lagniappe like he meant it and kissed me light, nothing to set off alarms. After dinner he took me to a bar on St. Claude where the bartender dapped him up and handed me a Go cup I didn't order. Perks, he said. Everyone knows everyone. It felt like being ushered backstage at a show. Second date, a Bywater gallery opening. Third, a music jam at a warehouse that used to be a rice mill. Every space we entered he had a key to or a wink for, and every drink slid toward me with no check. It's New Orleans, everything's a favor, so I let the hospitality wash over me like AC. Little Tells arrived with the rain. The locks on those places weren't regular locks. Heavy slide bolts, padlocks the size of fists. When we closed down together, he stayed too comfortable while the bartender flipped chairs. We can hang after hours, he'd say, and the staff would look at him and then me and fold their faces into something neutral. I asked if he was sure if it was okay, if someone would get in trouble. Cher, he said, grinning. I am the trouble. I filed that smile like a match in a drawer. Bumble kept throwing me his friends' faces. Musicians, bartenders, a couple of art kids, everyone with overlapping photos from the same couches. Their prompts praised him. Jules is a real one. Best beans in the parish, like alibis stitched into profiles. I didn't think conspiracy. New Orleans is a small big town, but I started hearing a second line in my chest during good nights, a drum line that wasn't on the street yet. One Friday, he said come to this little bar off Dauphine. It's a hole in the wall, he said. They'll put us in the back so the band can warm up. When I walked in, the room smelled like citrus and stale beer. It was just us and the band, horn cases open, cymbals like moons. Jules kissed my cheek, slid my phone from my hand, and tucked it into his pocket. For safekeeping, he said. Your bag's small. My bag is fine, I said, hand out. He laughed and didn't give it back. You're uptight, Cher, he said. It's New Orleans, relax. You can trust me. Men say trust like they invented it. I told myself to breathe. The drummer hit a practice roll, sticks bouncing like rain. The bartender, a woman with a crescent moon tattoo, looked at me, and then looked at the door and then back at me, subtle as a nod. I glanced down the hallway toward the kitchen. The back exit had a padlock with the shackle loose, hanging like a question. Jules leaned in, breath sweet with beer and mint, and joked, We should keep you here after hours. The band laughed the way men laugh when they're deciding if you're in on it. That's not funny, I said. I didn't pitch it high. I laid the words down flat, like wet paint. He blinked. Ah, come on. The bartender set a drink down and didn't smile. That was my cue. I told Jules I wanted to dance for him. Go make me that playlist, I said, moving my hips toward the hallway the way you lead a cat. He grinned, made a big show of it. Oh, and I slipped toward the kitchen door. The band hooped, and in the noise I slid the loose shackle free and ghosted into the alley. The air hit me wet and dark. My phone was still in his pocket, so I put my hand on the brick to steady myself and ran, past a dumpster, past a mural of a pelican with a crown, past a feral cat eating a beignet like it was fish. My sandals slapped. A motion light flared, a bodega bell chimed, and I burst into a corner store lit like salvation. The clerk looked up, took me in, sweat, panic, no phone, and reached under the counter to push a corded landline toward me like a priest passing a relic. "Thank you," I said, breath tearing at the edges. I called my friend Shauna, who lives 3 blocks over and has hands that can carry you if your knees forget how. 2 minutes, she said. Stay with the man at the counter. We stood in the fluorescent hum together, me and the clerk and a pyramid of Zapp's chips. The second line in my chest quieted. A kid came in with quarters and bought a blue IC. The regular world kept existing. Shauna pulled up, headlights washing my ankles, and we were gone. Later, from the safety of her couch, I texted Jules from her phone. Return my phone at the 5th district now. If you contact me again, I will file a report. He sent 20 messages, apologies, jokes, insults rotting in real time. We sent screenshots to ourselves and blocked him. Shauna poured me water and looked at me the way women look when they are furious on your behalf and careful with your heart. 2 days later, the bartender with the moon tattoo found me on Instagram. You good? She wrote. I wrote back, I think so. She said, FYI, he's banned from 3 bars. He keeps slipping in the back because he knows the locks. She sent me a list. It read like a parade route. The charm cracks and reveals the machinery underneath. That's New Orleans, that's everywhere. I want to tell you I never doubted myself, that I didn't scroll through our messages trying to find the moment where he showed me what he was. He did, of course. We just call red flags culture when we're having fun. We did a proper date at Honey Pie first. Pie wedge big enough to offend God. Beers that tasted like summer trying to happen. He was handsome in the Wisconsin way. Forearms like he stacked kegs for a living, he did. Beard that could have its own Instagram. Eyes the color of oxidized copper. He talked yeast strains and hop terroir with that tender reverence people usually save for religion. I like people who are soft about their craft. Also, I liked the way his palms settled at the back of my neck when we crossed Kinnikinnick, like he knew where the dimmer switch lived. NSFW, sure. That kiss outside Rushmore that went on 15 seconds too long. My jeans tight where they needed to be. His breath maple sweet from a barrel-aged something he'd talked the waitress into letting him quality check. Milwaukee is a small big town. You can get drunk just on being known. We simmered where most first dates sprint. His after-hours invite felt earned. Just you and me in the taproom, he said. We're closed, but I gotta check a tank. Limited stout, we can do a tiny taste. He laughed. I'll even say ope if I bump ya. I said yes. I also texted my friend Megan, going to taproom after close with brewer boy. We'll text when home. Rule of the Midwest, we're polite to a fault. Our safety plans should be ruder. The taproom smelled like toast and citrus peel and the rubber of 1,000 boots. Bar stools inverted like sleeping bats. He flicked on a few pendant lights, the rest stayed dark, pockets of shadow where a person could disappear. Insurance, he said, twisting the deadbolt. He smiled like he was apologizing for weather. Can't have randoms wander in during cleaning. You're VIP though. He monologued in the way makers do when they're in their church. Yeast as living workforce. Temperature curves. A saison that got away from him like a wild child. A lager that behaved. I leaned at the bar and listened because I like when people love things. While he talked, I drifted my gaze to the back wall, string lights, a corkboard, and froze on a grid of Polaroids taped in rows. Women, 1 per frame, all by the tanks. Some with pints, some with mash paddles like props. Dates scrawled in Sharpie. A handful crossed out with an X. I felt the beer in my stomach turn back into grain. What's the wall? I asked, keeping casual like a bartender who's seen 3 decades of men. He grinned. Taproom friends, he said. Backstage passes. I smiled with my teeth. Why are some crossed out? Breakups, he said too quickly, like the word had an aftertaste. People move. Some got weird. He had the decency not to say she got weird, but the message landed anyway. He bent down to a lowboy and pulled out an unmarked brown glass growler, no label, cap hand twisted. Special pour, he said. Not on yet. I want your palate. He flashed the cap against the bar top with a little PFF. The smell that bloomed was chocolate and coffee and something else I couldn't name, a sweetness just left of right. He poured me a short pour, perfect head. He poured himself a full shaker and took a swallow like a man in a commercial. I lifted the glass, let it touch my lip, and did not drink. Plant on the bar, potatoes and a chipped Pabst pitcher. I faked a cough laugh at one of his jokes about yeast getting freaky, charming in daylight, not so much at midnight, and tipped the stout into the plant's soil with the ease of a woman who's bartended weddings and survived them. I set the glass down with foam lacing like I'd taken a perfect mouthful. He leaned in to kiss me again, and I let him for a beat because I'm allowed to want and watch at the same time. Heat, pressure, teeth. He was good at acting like he'd slow down if you said slow down. He kept talking even as he kissed, about grist bills, about barrel provenance, about we could brew together sometime. We. A big word for a tiny room with a locked door. The back of house stainless hissed. A dishwasher clanged a pan. He flinched. A silhouette moved through the swing door. One of the dish guys, hairnet, forearms wet, eyes like he'd slept here before. Brewer boy didn't introduce us. We're closed, he called, friendly not friendly. The dishwasher nodded once. Eyes on me. Eyes on the wall of Polaroids. He disappeared back into the steam. I remembered the bartender from earlier, a woman with a buzz cut and anchor tattoo who'd slipped me extra pretzels and said stay hydrated, babe, like she meant water and also something else. I slid my phone under the bar and texted her name from the receipt. Hey, it's Pie Girl from 7 p.m. He locked the door. Can you walk me out? The typing bubble sat. I felt my pulse settle into my mouth. Cheese curds? I said aloud, bright, sweet, pushing my stool back like my body couldn't wait. I need curds like right now. You got some in back? He laughed. You're so Wisconsin. He glanced at the kitchen door and then back at me. We can get some after one more. He topped my glass. The plant drank again. The anchor bartender ghosted through the door, sudden and silent, grabbed a check presenter off the bar like she needed it, set it back down like she didn't. We're cashing out in 5, she said without looking at him. To me, she said, need anything? Curds, I said with my eyes. Bathroom. She nodded once. Disappeared. 2 beats later, both dishwashers came through the door together, big, slow, solid, the kind of men who can move keg racks without making noise. We're mopping, one said, voice even. Need through. It wasn't a question. Brewer boy sighed like inconvenience was killing him. All right, he said, unlocking the deadbolt with a flourish, like it was his decision. VIP exit, he winked. The dish guys didn't wink. They flanked me like bodyguards at Summerfest. We walked out together, slow. The night air took a full lungful of me and let me go. Anchor met me on the sidewalk with a paper boat of curds and eyes that said we see this too much. You good? She asked. I am now, I said. She touched my elbow once, soft. Back of house has a list, she said. We don't let him lock it anymore. Tell your girls, don't go after hours. I met him on Hinge at midnight when the heat finally dropped below punishment. Hiker guy. Sunrise trails. Saguaro selfies with arms thrown up like the cactus was copying him. Mossy green eyes under a sun-faded cap. Voice prompt about golden hours church. I liked the way he said it, quiet and cocky at once. First coffee at Cartel turned into a parking lot kiss, warm, salt-sweet, his palm at the back of my neck like he knew where the on-switch lived. NSFW? It's the way that kiss lodged just under my ribs and buzzed for hours. We kept it PG in public and let our texts simmer. He pitched a sunrise hike on South Mountain. Golden hour or it doesn't count, he said. I'll bring cold brew. I said yes because my body already had. My brain did adult things. Told 2 friends, dropped a pin, packed extra water, tossed a tiny can of electrolyte powder in my bag, set a time I'd text after. Trailhead at 5:22 a.m., desert lavender, and a choir of cicadas vibrating like a bad dream. He looked good and dusty. I smelled like SPF and cinnamon gum. We climbed easy switchbacks, flirted between breaths. He pointed at petroglyphs like he'd drawn them. I clocked the ranger's truck, logged the call box location, filed it all away. Halfway up, he veered hard right onto an unmarked spur. Trust me, he said, and the way he said it made my knees argue. I stopped. Where does it go? A shrug. Secret overlook. Then he did the thing that clicked everything sideways. Let me pocket your phone, save battery. I got us. His hand was already open, palm up, a magician asking for rings. I smiled without my eyes. I'm good, I said. He laughed. Don't be paranoid. Up here, you gotta go off-grid. Somehow the phone ended up in his cargo pocket anyway, like I'd handed it over in another life. The trail thinned to goat path, Cholia hugging our calves with a mean, loving need. He talked van life like gospel, solar, water catchment, ditch the lease, let the desert parent us. We could just go, he said, brushing my shoulder. The heat under that touch remembered the parking lot kiss and suggested bad, good, stupid ideas. We crested a little saddle, and he showed me a shallow scrape behind a boulder, a dry wash dug out like a drawer. Stash spot, he said proudly. Plastic-wrapped water, protein bars, a roll of duct tape, my stomach's least favorite accessory. The desert went very, very quiet. Even the bugs took a knee. I made my voice soft as damp sand. I'm overheating, I said, letting my breath go ragged. Cramps. Electrolytes? I bent, hands on thighs. Packets in my bag. He stepped close, a shadow over me, and I watched his hand leave his pocket to reach for my pack. My phone printed itself against the fabric from the outside. Here, he said, and that's when I reached for both, packet and phone, in one motion like a magic trick you practice alone. Thank you, I said, tearing the packet open with my teeth. I poured the grit into my mouth dry and swallowed around it. He winced, amused. Hardcore, he said. We can wait it out. I nodded, already turning us back downhill, moving slow like my quads were glass. Inside, I was a jackrabbit counting beats between shadows. When the trail widened, I sped up. Bathroom, I said. Like now. I didn't run. I also didn't let him set the pace. A mountain biker showed up like a comic book panel. Helmet, calves, a tiny bell that went pring against the mountain's giant chest. I waved him down. Hey, I said, too cheerful. You got water to spare? He stopped, easy. Always. My hiker guy hung back 3 yards. I slid the phone into my own pocket, like it had always lived there. The biker looked from him to me, read history in my face, and said, Want a ride down? I laughed. I want you near. He coasted beside us the whole way to the lot, a benevolent satellite. The very worst date of my life went like this. I had met a guy online in a local chat room. He was a few years older. I was 16 and he was 18. We talked for months as friends, exchanged pictures and talked about life. Then one day he asked me to go on a date with him. I said sure, and it went downhill from there. I lived in the country, and trying to give people directions could be hard because half of the road signs had been stolen and there were very few landmarks to reference. Turn left by the blue house with a big tree. Basically, trying to get him to my house was a nightmare. This was in early 2000, so while cell phones were starting to become more common, you didn't get service where I lived unless you climbed a tree. He finally got to my house and proceeded to bitch at me because I gave him bad directions and because I lived way out in the middle of nowhere. That should have been my first red flag, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt because I understand it can be frustrating. Then he proceeded to stand in my kitchen telling my dad what a great catch he was. Before everyone jumps to conclusions, it is absolutely normal for a young boy to be nervous when meeting a father. It is normal for them to want to make a good impression, for them to outline why they are a good guy, and to make promises to care for the daughter. That was not what he was doing. He was bragging about himself. He was bragging about his car, and even said something along the lines of my dad being lucky his daughter found such a good-looking guy. My dad looked at me with a look that could only say, "Is this guy kidding?" So we get in the car, and he tells me he thought we could go to a movie. Without asking what I wanted to see, he picked out the movie that he wanted to go to. I'm not against a girl paying for herself at all, but when we got to the counter he bought one ticket and snacks for himself, and then moved aside to allow me to buy my own ticket. Again, that's fine, but if someone asks you out they should pay. Not because the man should pay for the woman, but because they asked you on a date. If I ask someone on a date, I would fully expect to pay for them, because that is implied when I ask them on a date with me. I bought my ticket, but didn't get snacks because I thought he already had. I thought wrong. Those were his snacks, not mine. I could get my own if I wanted them. I sat through a movie I didn't even care to see, with a boy who wouldn't share his snacks, but who kept trying to get me to make out with him. We had planned to go out to eat after the movie, but once we left he said he didn't really want anything to eat. That was okay with me, and I assumed he probably just didn't have enough money. Or maybe he was also starting to realize what a train wreck this date was. Either way, I assumed he would take me home. I assumed wrong. He ended up driving to a parking lot of a store that was being built. It was tucked back out of the way, and the lot was empty. He reclined his seat and told me he needed to nap for a while before taking me home. Nap? What? So what am I supposed to do? Except he didn't want to nap. He truly thought that after yelling at me for my directional skills, bragging about what a catch he was to my father, not sharing his snacks in the theater, not following through with the second part of the date, that I was going to jump over and have sex with him. I told him I would like to go home. He said that was fine, but it would be a while because he was going to nap. He kept begging for a kiss or other favors. I told him I was uncomfortable. I quickly realized I was in an abandoned parking lot, and even though there were hundreds of people around, they were not close enough to hear me if I needed help. I was alone. So I started kissing him and then told him I had to pee really bad. His car was his prized possession. God forbid I peed in it, so we drove to a gas station. I got out of the car and never got back in. I told him my dad was coming to get me and to go home. He asked when I would like to go out again. Actually, he said, "So when do you want to finish what we just started?" I don't hold it against him. Young boys are socially awkward and driven by hormones, but we never went on another date. To add a story on top of this from this old friend of mine, I used to be a bartender, which mainly involved 8 years of being tired, having a sore lower back and screaming "fuck OFF" in my head when people came to the bar. Still, I was under the impression there were certain trade-offs to living a night owl life. First and foremost of which was attention from girls. Oh boy, let me tell you now, that didn't come true. In fact, when women did interact with me directly, it was usually to be rude. I remember kicking a girl out once for being too drunk and dancing on tables inside, and she said, "I'm sorry you're gay" on the way out. I still don't know how that made me gay. Does it really make you gay to ask a woman to stop dancing on a table? If proper table manners and a clean space to eat a Caesar salad is a sign of homosexuality, then sign me up. But among all the mayhem and madness, there was actually one time when a girl showed some clear interest. She was blonde and short, wearing black fishnet stockings with a black corset top. Super sexy but strange choice of outfit, outside of a sex dungeon. She'd been in my bar for a while, drinking on this particular Saturday night with her mate, just the two of them, and while they were getting loose, thankfully they did not try and dance on any tables. Story 20. Very first real date. I was 19, and he was a classmate who'd been hounding me for a date since class started. I knew it was going to go badly within seconds of showing up. We'd agreed that I would drive to his apartment, and he would drive us to a buy-the-slice pizza place and then see Daredevil. Should have known it would be bad in the planning phase, I know. I arrive half an hour before we have to leave, and he lets me in with a grunted, "Hi," before returning to his computer chair. He has NO things. There is a computer with a desk and chair, and a lawn chair in his otherwise empty apartment. I try to strike up some conversation, but he's at his desk, furiously typing, and has no interest in speaking to me. "What are you playing?" I ask. "Dark Age of Camelot." "So, you want to take off?" I try. He tells me he can't leave early because he needs to meet a friend and sell him a fake sword for fake money. I play MMOs now, but let's put this in perspective. I sigh and sit down in the lawn chair. I keep trying to talk to him, but he's uninterested. The time to leave rolls around. Let's say it's 4 p.m. for clarity's sake, and I get up and tell him it's time to get rolling. He tells me his friend hasn't logged in yet. So he's late. Let's go. You don't play MMOs. You don't understand. I have a reputation in this game. I can't just stand this guy up. He's not there. Let's go. We can push it back another half hour. It's fine. No matter what I say, he won't get up, and he lapses back into typing and ignoring me. For 30, I tell him the time. I am bored and starving. He won't move. Says we'll catch the last showing of Daredevil at 7:30, and that will give us another 2 hours to wait in his empty apartment. 6:30, he hasn't spoken with me except to grunt when I try and spark conversation. He still refuses to move since his friend hasn't logged in. He suggests we skip dinner and just go to the 7:30 showing. I protest, but he just insists I don't understand how important this is and continues ignoring me. 7:15, it is now time to leave to watch a bad movie while starving. He's rooted in place. I've been here since 3:30. I tell him it's his friend's fault if he doesn't get this sword, and it is time to leave. My date continues protesting. I suggested he call the guy and tell him to log in, so we can leave. He doesn't have his number. Email him. Doesn't have his email. Turns out he has no way to contact him, because not only is this guy not an actual friend, but he doesn't even know his toon name, and was supposed to have met him at noon through a mutual friend, who is also not on. He insists he needs a few more minutes to see if he turns up, or his magic sword-selling reputation may never recover. I tell him I'm leaving to go get Taco Bell. He starts placing an order. I clarify that I am taking my horrible food back to my apartment, and he would have to find his own food. Good day, sir. Story 19. I don't know if this classes as one as wasn't really a date, was a blind date set up by friends that didn't go well. I'll type it down anyway. When I was 16, my two, now ex-friends, decided to set me up on a date with a guy that one of their male friends knows and works with at a pub. I was nervous, and when we arrived, we got introduced even though I was shy. He was attractive and seemed nice. But this wasn't your typical date. It technically was a blind date as we both never met, yet my friends and her friend decided to set us up. Now one of my friends is very flirtatious and a bit promiscuous, yet I never realized how crafty she was. The thing is, this guy who I was supposed to go on a date with had his friends there. We went into an open room with a pool table, yet Kay, the flirty one, seemed to catch the guy's attention. I'm speechless that within 10 minutes of being introduced to one another, he has Kay sitting on his lap, my other friend chatting away, and the guy seemingly more interested in her. I stood behind the wall hidden away from them. I tried to interact but was ignored. Then Kay and my blind date were kissing. I was in tears and had to go to the bathroom to compose myself, while they were all laughing and having a good time. Not one of them seemed to know or care I was missing for the time they spent hanging out with my blind date and his mates. I sat on a chair by myself trying to occupy myself, which very hard, while my friends enjoyed their fun. I stayed as I didn't want to leave my friends, even though I should have left. They spent over 2 hours in the pool table room before they left the room. When they saw me, all that was said was, "Oh, we wondered where you were. We thought you left." I did confront Kay about why she was with my blind date. She said, "He seemed to be more interested in me and thought you're too shy, so it was better that you two didn't really hang. He wasn't your type." I just stayed quiet. I was hurt, and I never really got to know the guy, yet felt he didn't like me anyway. I told my friends to not hook me up again. That was awkward and painful. Should have realized how awful my friends were, but that's a story for another time. Story 18. So we have plans for the date, and then the day of, texts me that she's having performance anxiety, about it basically, and asking if we can reschedule. I say I get it, no problem, and I think that's it. An hour or so later she texts me to say she changed her mind and wants the date back on. Cool. Except not cool. She got her liquid confidence, and that's why she changed her mind. I show up and she is drunk. I'm already feeling not great, but didn't want her to be this drunk out in public in a city where someone could take advantage, so we get some fries and she asks if I want a beer. Sure. So she gets one too. And I'm like, maybe you don't need to drink more. She says it's fine. Okay. She asks if I want to get out of there, so we pay, and she still has half her beer left. She says we're going to dip out the back, and she's going to bring it. I say, hey, maybe don't do that. She insists it's fine. I say, okay, I'm going to pretend I barely know you if anyone stops us. We make it back to her place, and she leads me through a maze of a building where everything looks exactly the same, and I have no fucking idea how we got to her room. There was nothing really notable to lead me out. This matters later. We get to her room, and she talks about herself and how she produces music, and she wants to show me a song. Cool, I make music too. I'm always down to listen to new stuff. She can't connect her laptop to the Bluetooth thing correctly, but she is so insistent on making sure it connects because she wants me to hear. Okay, so I lie there on her bed making awkward small talk while I wait for her to get it working for like a half hour. Eventually she gets it, shows me the song, it's fine. She puts on other mood music and is lying next to me. Okay, so I forgot to mention I'm trans. That's important here. I'm trans, she's gay. Honestly, never really a problem for me. I'm attractive and do fine. She starts telling me that she kind of hates penises. No offense, but doesn't mind that I have one, asks if she can go down on me. I'm like, not really after that slam dunk of a pickup line, and also definitely not while you're blackout drunk, and I'm just a bit buzzed. She's like, no, it's fine, I don't mind, you're cute, etc., and she starts kissing me along my neck while on top of me. I'm like, and contemplating what to do about this when she just falls asleep. She passed out drunk on top of me. So I'm just lying there messing around on my phone and listening to her music while formulating a plan of what the fuck to do. Eventually I decide to get her off of me, and I try poking her to wake her up and say that I'm gonna leave, but she is dead to the world. I literally can't wake her. So I make sure to leave her on her side so she doesn't throw up and choke herself or anything and make my way out of her room. Right as I'm trying to make my escape, I realize I have no idea where the fuck to go to get out. As I'm panicking, her roommate comes out into the common room and is like, and I'm like, I'm your roommate's date. How do I get out of here? She briefly explains and I say thanks and tell her to check in on her roommate so she doesn't choke herself in her sleep. I eventually find my way out, no idea how, and I text her that I head home and hope she feels better in the morning. She apologizes profusely the next morning, saying she is so fucking sorry for getting so drunk. I'm pretty understanding, and I'm like, it's okay, I get it. She asks if we can have a do-over, and I don't remember what I said, but it was basically a no without saying it in a mean way. I do feel pretty bad. Maybe we could have been friends or something if she wasn't belligerently drunk on the first date, but yeah, that one's kind of hard to come back from.